Bolvar Done Right, featuring Everybody Loves Sally, which is my idea that Death Knights are criminally underwritten.
Yes.
They're criminally underwritten, and Wrath being there kind of brings this in really quite well. So, how do I put this? Yeah. Shadowlands was a massive fucking mistake for 20,000 reasons, one of them being the DKs didn't get the love they deserved. Especially after Legion tried to set up an interesting storyline with Bolvar and the Ebon Blade, and then that was fucking butchered in a short story where the horsemen were like cool and interesting, and then went to kill Bolvar or deal with him, and then they saw him all beaten up by girl boss Sylvanas and went, no, fuck, we actually like you now. And that didn't make any sense because they needed to get rid of the horsemen being not his friends, and the horsemen didn't do anything, and the Ebon Blade didn't do anything except some nameless fighting, that's okay. But fundamentally the point is that there's so many horrendous opportunities that would have made DKs feel like fucking walking gods and beloved classes. They deal with the afterlife perfectly because there's so much of like their suffering, so much of their angst, so much of the existence that people actually kind of forget a lot of this. But the fact that Death Knights have the eternal hunger where they always have to inflict suffering or death, or they actually get like literally feel agony, pain, and existential suffering and go mad.
I mean, like, how many players even know that?
Almost none, because it was quest text in the Wrath intro, which you don't see if you are a allied race DK or one of the new DKs, because of course you're just dropped in front of Bolvar, and it goes, there you go.
Oh
there
yeah,
you go. Happy days. But like that's the thing where that's all super that's super important to them, and that's never touched upon. But one of the things is like Bolvar as the leader of the Ebon Blade could have been, or as the Lich King, and then how the horsemen of the Ebon Blade dealt with him would have been so much more interesting than anything they did with the Helm of Domination. Because I have this idea of the themes of Death Knight being self-determination and duty, and self-sacrifice in the face of like that kind of stoicism that masks the tremendous angst they have underneath, where they have to be evil. And there's a really cute thing about the start of Suffer Well. That's exactly what their entire vibe is. Yeah. And I like playing a DK in Legion because it got most of that right. But then they didn't follow it up in Shadowlands, where there was a load of the Demon Hunters are just fucking DKs too. Where we suffer more, we promise. But the point is, Bolvar had this whole thing with himself as Lich King and himself as father. You know, does he have his personal duty to his daughter, which is him as a man, or him as the Lich King, his duty to, hold back the Scourge, lead the Ebon Blade, hold back the Jailer, take that burden all on himself. So like, you think of that, you think about how the four horsemen ideally wanted to get rid of him because they didn't like what they were doing, because they didn't like being enslaved by him, especially as he started to become more Arthasy. And their whole point is, their whole existence is, we are what we hate. We will kill everything like us, but we will not become them. We will not become that, even though we are. It's that we do evil, but we only do evil on evil things.
I wish they expanded on that Bolvar plotline more.
Yeah.
Like, it was so interesting during Legion. Like, you're doing all these things, thinking to yourself, should I be worried about this?
Yeah.
And then I guess it just turns out the Jailer made him angry.
Yeah. Here's where I think this could have went. And this is literally, I'm just writing fan fiction, and I hope, I want to get a vibe for, if people enjoy this kind of, this idea or this direction, and hopefully, someone at Blizzard can kind of see it and feel it through or whatever else, or get the overall direction going, right? So, Bolvar's problem was being the Lich King. That wasn't very nice. He couldn't be the Lich King and also be a good Da, because we bit of conflict there. We bit of conflicting ideas. One of the problems that the horsemen had with him was all of that, this is absolutely terrible. We can't put up with this evil con telling us what to do. We have to get rid of that. And then this, they never touched on him being Alex Straza life breath either. God. Anyway, to carry on, the four horsemen wanted to have a problem with him, or had that problem with him, and then went to sort him out, but then Sylvanas got there first. And I have this whole idea in my head of imagine, because you think of the themes of DK suffering and the Lich King being this one tremendous burden, and then you think of the parallels to Arthas, right? Where what happened to Arthas whenever he the turning moment of him as a paladin was Stratholme. What happened to Stratholme? His mates said, "No, that's not the right thing to do, brother. We're not going to follow you down this path." Even though it was the path of his duty, it was the right path, the right thing to do. Hypothetically, theoretically, of course, it was the right thing to do, which was stop the problem, save his people. That's what he believed, and no one came along with him. Arthas did nothing wrong, as John puts it. Arthas did nothing wrong, except he did a lot wrong. And then later on, that manifested in him not trusting his own people. Got the mercenaries, burned down the boats. His people wanted to leave. He's like, "No, fuck it, I am now dictator man. I'm now dictator king. I'm now going to fucking force you. I'm the tyrant king." And the tyrant king already effectively a death knight at that point in terms of his actions. He's evil, whatever else. And then Muradin goes to stop him again, and he doesn't trust Muradin anymore because he's already been, I guess, he's already been burned by his two closest friends, not trusting him. He was alone, right? He was alone. They failed Arthas. Bolvar's not Arthas, but he's a Lich King. He is Lich King too. What could be different? The Horsemen, right?
Yeah, they could have tried to...
The Horsemen could have shared the burden of Lich King.
Oh, God.
Whenever the helm broke,
Damn it,
they could have carried individual shards of the helm themselves. And then you could have characterized each of the fucking 4 horsemen, all great characters, by the way. Nazgrim suffering because Nazgrim hated the undead. He was Garish's right-hand man, clearly big racist. He was running around like, "I have become exactly what I hate. How do I handle that internally?
Chuckler!
How do I handle that internally?" Whiteman's the perfect example of this, because Whiteman's entire duty in her life, because of the suffering she felt as a child and went through because of the Scourge, she's like, "Fuck the Scourge, I'm going to kill them all. I'm going to kill all the undead. That's my duty. I believe in this duty so strongly, I literally can't die. I literally cannot. When I die, I come back to life because I'm so mad at the Scourge." That's maybe cutting little points out there. To the point where Lillian Voss had to get her with the Blades of the Anointed to keep her dead. Then they raise her up. So she's sitting there like, she comes back, she suffers with being the undead now, in the same way Lillian Voss did, but in a different way, because Lillian's all like existentially angsty, and like, "Oh, well, I suppose I can come to terms with it," but White Mane has the eternal hunger. She's now what she hated most. So redirect that duty. Well, if I'm going to fucking suffer, I'm going to suffer well, and I'm going to make sure no Scourge ever does anything wrong ever again. I'll absolutely shoulder the burden of being Lich King. That, for all 4 of the horsemen, you have this incredible experience of these 4 characters. Bolvar finally gets to not be the Lich King full time. He gets to actually spend time with his daughter. And look at that, you've got a substantially better... And then the amount of ways the actual like Death Knights themselves can actually aid in this. Imagine this is where like there would be Deathlord, like if you're the main character tier. But imagine your character carries a shard of the Helm of Domination as a DK. It doesn't have much power in it. You get a couple whispers every now and again.
That'd be cool.
But that's the part.
Do you know what I just thought, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you wanted to characterize Zoval and not just have him fucking pop up out of nowhere,
Yeah.
you could start to just do a Mr. Robot with Bolvar.
Yeah.
And then have all the characters around him be like, our friend is turning into a David Fincher movie. Help. How do we fix this?
Yeah.
Like, that could have been a way to have Zoval just like slowly eat away at his head. That could have been an interesting mystery.
Yeah.
They could have spun across 2 expansions and then like actually did now we've planned our villain well in advance, set him up well, established him well, and then did the reveal, and it's cool.
Yep.
But instead it's just, they obviously didn't do that,
Yeah.
which perhaps shows that the jailer maybe wasn't supposed to be the jailer. Maybe stuff chopped and changed and there was craziness and madness. But yeah, I guess you just put into firm focus that something along those lines in the lead up could have made Zoval work so much better as a character, because he could have been introduced within the drama and the mystery of the Helm, how the Helm works, how much of Ner'zhul's left, what's going on in the Helm. Like, all of those really, like, cool, satisfying mysteries. That could have been a great story. It could have evolved and continued past the breaking.
Yep.
But I suppose that's the story of WoW. It is endless missed opportunities with the narrative. And I think that when it's been less focused on A plot and more focused on like, bam, here's a setting and a very simple A plot, what's happened is the players have filled in a lot of gaps. The players have thought about all the potential. They've poured over the quest text, done all of that. And that's been very satisfying to the players. And it's felt like, there's a story that pushes us through and explores more of this world.
Yeah.
But then I think it's tricky the way that they then try to collapse it all down to the A plot.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
the problem, right?
it's like it's not planned, it's all ramshackle, and we're in this situation where I guess the A plot has betrayed the world building, and I guess it's went off the rails a little bit. And with the side quest density of Dragonflight, I'm maybe feeling a bit better about that now. But I suppose it just is interesting. And I mean, speaking of Death Knight, speaking of the Helm of Domination, my boy fucking Ner'zhul.
Yeah, what a disgrace.
Disgrace. That's
disgrace.
the only word for it. So, yeah, there you go. Point is, this is what happens when you think about how to make players like really feel this shit and to actually make the most of the pieces you have. And if there's anything to take away from this, it is that they must have some insane narrative bandwidth issue. They must have bandwidth issues, right? Even the ability to put in some side quest content that doesn't even need to be full of crazy stuff. Like, I don't know what it is, but you could see some of these things as just nice little evolving storylines that they throw another leg of the quest into a patch.
Yep.
In the same way that with FF14, they just decided, oh yeah, I suppose Omicron and Omega, like those things are connected. Right, we'll do Omega Beyond the Rift.
Yep.
We'll just do a nice to have.
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of it's just there's so much potential in all these class fantasies. There's so much richness that, especially I feel a lot of this from playing through Wrath Classic, where I obviously most of the DK stuff was talking to like Luke who mains DKs and thinks about them loads, and I was playing through Night Elf stuff as in Classic and Wrath as a druid, but like, man, this stuff is so rich. There's so much history here. There's so much, and you can really thematically pull it through super simply in ways that like emotionally resonate with the individual experience of the players. And like that's the class fantasy is what's really been missing. That's what hit people hard in Legion. It wasn't. Some of it was Illidan's I Am My Scars. Some of it was we're finally taking on the Legion, even though taking on the Legion didn't really feel like it was taking on our Legion, because there were these like basically Argus and Antorus didn't feel super World of Warcrafty endgamey as we had imagined it, but they made it work because we all had like the impetus to go there. And that's a case where like there's so many missed opportunities. And I've lost my fucking mind thinking about this. I'm just thinking, how do you push forward every single race and every single class in one way that actually makes sense for basically everyone? What themes are they missing here? Where do you go with Khadgar and Medivh as mages? Where do you go with like the Alaneth storyline? Where do you go? Well, that wasn't really much storyline. Where do you go with that? Where do you weave in the blue dragons from Dragonflight? Where do you weave in Jaina? How do you bring priests forward with the Archbishop fella? The undead one, Fall.
Alonso's Fall.
Yeah, Alonso's Fall. Yeah, how do you bring him like forward in that sense? How do you get the feeling of people playing their class not as gameplay devices, but as characters, but as things that they resonate with? And playing Wrath has really kind of did that to me a lot, because I've been thinking about, the class quests that you'd go through. Even simple stuff like just go get these two pendant halves to get your aquatic form. And that stuff's great. Just, hey, here's how to be a bear. What do you do? Go kill a moonkin? That's a bit weird. But then you go talk to a bear and the bear goes, fuck yeah, let's go. You can be a bear now. You're like, that's not how it went, but like close enough. You're like, hell yeah, that's great. So it's like a lot of those feelings of just, how do you get people to be invested again in this? How do you do it in the small ways, in the cheap ways? Because the easy answer is just make loads of content for it. Just have 7 expansions released at the same time with the content. But that's unrealistic. So I've been thinking about the ways to do this properly. Obviously the DK one is a little bit heavy and like this is like a full plot line here. But for the Night Elf stuff I was talking about with the Dragon and the Worgen, all you need is a couple people firing some NPCs into a corner, having some dialogue going on. Have a reason for like, because even if you fill your world with that, people will walk around to find it. People will walk around to experience it. I mean, obviously a lot of people see it on Wohead and then just, not have context. But that's the thing where that's what they could be doing. That's what they could be doing. It's very different. Donut, you're exactly right. It is very different to play the DK intro after Shadowlands. Very different.
Oh, I haven't done that yet.
It's not good.
Oh.
It's not good. It's really not good.
Yeah, that bit where you go to get your horse.
Yeah.
Time works differently in the Shadowlands.
Yeah,
Someone will make a speculation video about this in a decade.
Yeah.
And we did.